please, Craig, Mr. Thomas, Commissioner Thomas,
Ready to
please have
share
your
your
seat.
meal?
Commissioner Thomas, come to order.
Yes.
Do we have to
It's been hard to
make an announcement that we're back in session?
It's tough for a guy like me.
I would take a roll call also.
Okay, the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Board is back in session. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Carmichael. Here. Commissioner Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Pill.
Still here.
Commissioner Thomas. Here. Commissioner Bartel.
Here.
And Chairman
Here.
Richard.
Okay, everybody is present. I have been asked to have a representative of Thai Incorporated speak. He said only for a few minutes before the rebuttal, so if you would. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
My name is Joe Hicks, and as the chairman said, I'm here representing Thai Inc. and Mr. H. Ty Warner, the founder and creator of Beanie Babies and a longtime corporate resident of the Village of Westmont. And I will keep it very brief. And after being here for the Economic Development Board hearing maybe a month and a half ago, I reported back to Mr. Werner about the proposed project. And his concern is just density and traffic problems. And that's really it. That's his only that is his only objection to it. And I think as far as the natatorium, complimentary use to the hotel, I'm a swim parent. I haven't traveled as much as some of these other parents have, but we were just at UIC over the weekend, and it is everything that's been said about swimming here tonight is completely correct. I think the world-class facility would be phenomenal and a tremendous compliment for the hotel and an asset to the village. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dumont, if you would care to rebuttal the...
Sure. I'm going to just ask a couple of questions of them first, and then close with a very brief statement. But to the traffic engineer, I forgot your name, but I want to make sure that you understand that the natatorium will, the prime parking for that is primarily special events. Do you understand that? Are you familiar with a sporting event known as the Ryder Cup? Yes. Are you familiar with that it was held in the last several years at Medina Country Club?
Not at that location.
You're not familiar that it was held at Medina? Okay. I can state for the record that it was indeed held at Medina Country Club. Do you have any idea on the amount of parking at Medina Country Club?
None whatsoever.
Okay. I can also state for the record that not even close to enough at Medina to host a Ryder Cup. Special events require communities to come together. That's what we're trying to do here. With respect to one of the attorneys, I believe Scott's comment about the natatorium, the Kaufman family is doing this as a philanthropic venture. They are constructing it entirely without a penny of taxpayer money. And I think we've heard tonight how difficult it is to get taxpayers to pay for this type of thing, especially in the type of economic climate that we currently have in our state. These events currently go to Indiana along with our businesses. They go to Wisconsin along with our businesses and our business for those particular weekends. People are fleeing the state. People are fleeing these communities. And I showed you at the beginning of my presentation the economic impact that really can have. And I respect the fact that they all have significant investments. In the aggregate, potentially, currently, more than the cash outlay that we have. The economic impact in terms of revenue to the Village of Westmont isn't even close. Isn't even close. We pay 5% on every room every night. We pay 2% on food and beverage. And we pay property taxes. They pay only property taxes and whatever other economic impact they have in the community. I would like to, ask either Scott or Kevin if they're aware of any of their clients are ineligible to vote in the state of Illinois. Are you aware of that?
As to whether they're eligible?
Eligible to vote in the state of Illinois as their primary residence
I can't speak to the vote.
and pay income tax in the state of Illinois.
Can't speak to it.
Okay.
I don't understand the relevance.
Whether or not they're citizens of the city of Westmont or the village of Westmont and citizens of the state of Illinois, I find it relevant.
They pay taxes to the city of Westmont as homeowners.
They don't pay the income tax in the state of Illinois.
If you would please come up to the podium, speak into the microphone.
My-
Otherwise, they
My
cannot
last
hear
point
you
is,
in the
I
other
find it
room.
ironic that we have,
Mr. Dumont, do you have certification as to the homes of Oakwood?
I do not.
there?
It's speculation on my part.
Well, then why do you raise that kind of a question? I find it offensive.
I find it appropriate, and we have a disagreement there. I apologize.
You're asking a question that there's no answer to. And there's an innuendo in there that these people are not residents of Westmont. I find that offensive.
My apologies.
Okay.
What I find offensive, though, is that none of these residents spoke on their own behalf. They hired a city council member,
Hey, please.
they hired a city council member from Naperville and a former village trustee from Downers Grove to come to Westmont and tell Westmont what Westmont should do. And they talked about the train going west. Downers Grove has lots of great buildings. Naperville's got incredibly dense downtown. And they say this isn't a transit-oriented development because you're taking a Mercedes Sprinter van, instead of otherwise. Furthermore, their residential expert criticizing our market study had absolutely incorrect facts. During the break, my analyst looked at the Tapestry building that he mentioned as being only 58% occupied. That building is currently on the market, and with smartphone technology, we just downloaded, they're actually at 93%. That's quite a misstatement. 35% difference. He said 58, it's actually at 93. I'll put together a signed affidavit for the staff in the morning.
No, not in the, maybe
Okay.
when he's done with his
Yeah.
comments, he can
I
allow
was
for
to,
rebuttal.
and speaking to the study that was provided, and within that study, those are the numbers.
Okay, well,
Okay.
it's currently at
What can be played?
93% occupancy.
Thank you, John.
And that study is only a few months old, so that shows you how rapidly multifamily units are being absorbed. But I don't, our business is based here. We love working in this town, and we want to grow it. And here you've got an opportunity where someone is making a enormous investment as a philanthropic venture. And, they want to know what the economics of that are. The economics are irrelevant. It's being supported now and on a continuous use basis as part of our agreement with them. Pretty phenomenal outpouring of charitable good. And I really get upset when it's criticized in the manner that it just was. And I really get upset when the Oaks of the world and the Napervilles of the world, Downers Groves, tell Westmont what they should do. And those are their experts. That's the end. I'm going to let my attorney, Dan Shapiro, speak on specific rebuttals.
Thank you.
I have some rebuttal, and then I have some limited cross-examination, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to first rebut Attorney Gallagher's comments. And in doing so, I'm going to try to avoid some of the rhetoric and some of the hyperbole, like absurd or ridiculous or head fake, because our presentation was based upon facts, not based upon name-calling.
Okay, but for cross-examination, sir, we are not in a courtroom of law, so state your opinion and your facts, and
Will
we
do.
will
Thank
listen
you.
to them.
Thank you. First of all, in response, and please check me if I'm getting off of what your parameters, but, and I don't intend to go beyond. But in response to a suggestion that $15 million of improvements to the hotel is insignificant, I'm speechless. I don't think anyone in this room would find a $15 million investment to improve the hotel and resort grounds is insignificant. To suggest that without any such testimony that the values of the townhomes, which are mostly across a body of water, will therefore depreciate any percent, and I think Scott threw out arbitrarily 10%, I think is irresponsible. To suggest that This does not have qualities of a TOD where you have a hotel, where you have a apartment, where you have retail, where you have other amenities, where you have a golf course, where you have a train station not too far away. That, although not traditional TOD, to suggest that it does not contain the characteristics of a TOD, and therefore it would be appropriate to have a higher density, I think is also mistaken. To suggest that the only retail that is coming out of the hotel and avoid completely the retail that Peter himself will develop, he's a Starbucks developer and franchisee, and to kind of poo-poo that and say, just ignore all the other retail is, again, irresponsible. To suggest that the 9.95 FAR is way off when staff has, in the staff report, indicated that 0.90 FAR in nearby commercial projects is not uncommon, again, is wrong. To cherry pick from the comprehensive plan is wrong. To suggest that a 3/4 mile walking path is not an amenity to provide for open space is wrong. To suggest that we're actually reducing the open space and we're not affecting it at all, we're actually putting an underutilized parking lot to better use is wrong. To suggest that therefore there are stormwater challenges when we're not increasing the impervious is wrong. So I think through Mr. Gallagher's testimony, please, as we're all here giving our testimony, our opinions, and our conclusions, please take with what he said with a grain of salt. It's also interesting to know that when he represented Mr. Dumont, he was an advocate of shared parking, but tonight he's not. With regards to Mr. Berry, I just have a couple of questions. Where is he? Right there. Thank you. So I think what I heard you say was that you didn't have any fault with the CBRE study. Is that what I heard you say? Okay. Explain to me again, because I thought as part of what you said at the beginning was I don't find their conclusions wrong, but maybe I was mistaken. Tell me what you said.
Please stand to the podium. They cannot hear you in the distant room.
There are several issues with that report. Yeah, the capture rate, I believe, is not appropriately addressed, and I don't know that it's actually calculated.
Cannot hear.
Oh, okay. There's a capture rate that's included within that report, and what a capture rate does is it shows what percentage of households you need to capture in order to make your project work. And the report states a capture rate, and I don't believe the calculation is correct. It states a number and doesn't identify whether that number is a good number or a bad number. And I think that's something this committee should look at.
Okay. Is that your only criticism?
Of the study itself?
Yeah.
No, not really. No, I think that the way that the market area was defined was quite arbitrary. Just a 5-mile ring really doesn't define where your residents will come from,
Thank you.
especially if you're asking rents that are similar to downtown Chicago rents.
Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you. And Mr. Berry, I did forget. How long have you been on this project?
Several weeks.
When were you retained?
About 2 months.
2 months? Okay, thank you. I think one of the points you made was that the demand with respect to the absorption of apartments at $2 or $2.50 per square foot. I think you addressed that, right?
$2.75.
Right.
Yes.
And you understand that that's kind of fits within the theme that these apartments are luxury, mostly empty nesters, right?
I do, and that's exactly what I pointed out when I was at the microphone, yes.
Thank you.
Please step up there.
Yes, yeah, one of the points I'm making is that the rents that are being proposed are near to rents that you see in downtown or areas that are along railroad lines or, where people are willing to pay an extra amount because they don't have to have a car, or they're right a couple blocks away from the metro line that gets them down to their office downtown, which is not what this has. I understand that you have Uber and Lyft and a shuttle service, but the study that we were given to review really doesn't speak to how feasible that is or how well received that will be in the marketplace, and whether the people who reside at the property will willingly stand and wait for a shuttle service, or if that's something that they want to do. So that's not addressed at all within the study.
Just to make clear, that is he also mentioned that people that pay these kind of rents don't want to slum it on the shuttle service, which happen to be Mercedes-Benz Sprinter vans, leather seats, very nice fit and finish, and they're on demand. You don't have to push Uber and wait 5 minutes. It's, I want to go, and I want to go now. 3 shuttles going 24/7. And if you think that's not an amenity to a renter, you need to find a new line of work.
Now, come on.
I have a couple questions for the representative from Hamilton. You want to, we can share the mic if you want.
If you would please go up and share the microphone.
I won't bite, I promise.
But gentlemen, please try to speak into the microphone, otherwise the home audience in the other room cannot hear you.
I think one of your statements was that the development needs 1,000 parking spaces, right?
No, that is incorrect.
Okay. Tell me where 1,000 spaces came from in your testimony.
For the existing use, as it is today.
Now, did you...
Would you step closer to the microphone?
Sorry,
sir?
he said for the existing use as it exists today. Did you have an opportunity to review the report from KLOA?
Yes.
Okay, and you understand that KOLA was talking about the parking in the context of not every use is going to be engaged at the same time, correct?
Correct.
So you agree with that premise, right?
I understand that that's one of the points they're trying to make, and specifically addressing this commission, eliminating the natatorium. If 1,000 spaces are needed for the existing use as proposed, plus an additional 500 for apartments, 400 to 500 for apartments, you're at 1,400 to 1,500 parking spaces that are required. There is less than that proposed to be provided in the developed condition.
Okay, so but I'm not sure that answers the question. The question was, you understood and agree with KLOA's analysis as well as Mr. Dumont's representation that the banquet, that the hotel, that the natatorium, they're not all going to be used at the same time, right?
I understand that that is what they are proposing.
Okay. And you accept that representation?
I do not know if I agree with the representation.
Okay. You've testified to traffic matters before, right?
Correct.
So you understand the concept of staggered times?
Understood.
And so you understood, I think there was testimony earlier today that with regard to the natatorium, there would be staggered times.
I understand that, but I did not make a presentation up here on that.
No, I'm trying to see if you understand the concept of staggered times,
I understand
which means
staggered
that not all the
times.
parking and all the traffic will be there at the same
I
time.
understand their village code talks about collective use, which is staggered times, different uses on different times of day based on land uses.
Okay, as long as you, and you probably testified to the benefit of staggered times in different peak hours for different uses at different times.
Yes.
Okay. That's one way of mitigating parking, right?
That is correct.
Another way of mitigating parking is through the shuttle, through the valet, through Uber, right?
That is correct.
Did you take that into consideration in your opinion?
There was not any definitive information presented that indicated how many shuttles, what percent diversion from a single vehicle, a passenger car, what diversions would be taken off of this site, not using the parking, not using Willowcrest, not using Cass. No information's been presented to say that 4% of cars would be diverted from passenger car trips. 5% would be diverted. The general thought that cars would be diverted from using the parking lot is a great thing to say, but there are no numerical values provided.
Did you see the application where we said there would be 10 shuttles provided?
10 shuttle buses does not indicate the percent diversion of the traditional passenger car trip coming to a facility like this.
And in your opinion, you need an exact percentage diversion in order to testify that shuttle, valet,
I
and
do not.
Uber will mitigate
I
parking?
believe your application does.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I think one of the comments you made was that off-site parking has to be owned by the same owner.
That is a statement directly out of Westmont Village Code.
That was what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware that Athletico's off-site parking will be owned by Athletico?
Am I aware of that?
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay.
Is Athletico going to be an owner in this facility?
Yes.
And it's common ownership? I didn't see any evidence of that in the application.
Okay.
In the request for, I call them variances here, they're called waivers.
I have no more questions.
If that's what you're trying to assert, then please present it.
I-
If you're saying that there's cars being diverted, then please present the information so someone like me analyzing it on behalf of adjacent property owners or somebody up here can actually look at some numbers and verify that what you're asserting with the special events is true. If it is not true, then the rest of Westmont suffers.
Thank you, sir. I think we did provide information, and I only regret that it wasn't specific enough for you. I have a couple of questions of Mr. Rathje. You were retained a couple of days ago,
Yes, sir.
and you did all this work in just a couple of days?
Yes.
Okay. And you understand, Mike, can we put the list of the B3 permitted uses? So you were here earlier when we presented this list of permitted uses?
I was listening to, yeah,
Okay. So you would agree that if we look at, hard for me to read. Yeah, you would agree that as a permitted use,
You're behind over there.
right now, there could be a driving range, there could be a ski hill at the site? You would agree with that?
that's what
By right.
that's what the slide represents.
And there could be outside, outdoor lit golf. Well, of course it'd be outside, but lit golf.
That's what it represents.
And you would also agree that by matter of right, there could be a Target or a Walmart there?
I cannot conclude that from the
Okay.
language that's in there, because generally those stores are oftentimes indicated on a zoning ordinance as large box stores, and the uses that they're showing are typically the more traditional grocery, drugstore, clothing store, and you project it significantly forward because those type of products are sold in a Target.
I understand, but this would not, when read stores of general recognized retail nature which supply commodities on the premises such as, but not limited to groceries, drugs, clothing, flowers, notions, but excluding adult bookstores, that wouldn't exclude Target. That wouldn't
I
exclude
think,
Walmart.
it may, but that's going to be subject to legal counsel and staff's interpretation of the ordinance.
Is there something in here that says that?
Please, sir, will you stand at the podium?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you talked about the residential component of this project, and you understand, and we're looking at the zoning map that's in the staff report, you understand that a residential provision for the townhomes was previously provided as an R4 district, right next door.
And I noted that when I was talking about the comprehensive plan, that the comprehensive
Well,
plan.
I just wanted to ask
That was
you.
the context in which I said it.
Okay, but I'm going to ask you in a different context, if I could. You would agree that the residential component that's been provided by the Village of Westmont is an R4 or more intense zoning district, which lies just immediately to the east of where these apartments would be?
More intense than what?
R1 or R2 or R3.
Is R1, R2, R3?
I'm happy to rephrase it. You would agree that the village rezoned the property to R4. Are you familiar with R4?
Yes.
Okay, what's R4?
It's a residential zoning district that allows multifamily, single
Okay.
family, townhomes with attached units.
Thank you. So the village rezoned the property to allow for multifamily, which is immediately east of where the apartments would go, another multifamily use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the fact that there's an apartment that's being desired shouldn't be quite a terrible surprise to you, since the village had already offered its intent by rezoning property for multi-family dwelling units adjacent and to the east.
Well, I think that rezoning predated their recent adoption of a comprehensive plan which shows the site area of the subject site to be designated with a green open space location.
Are you
So-
saying that the rezoning is inappropriate? That what the village did in rezoning the property R4 is inappropriate?
As I told you before, the comprehensive plan did yes, I did,
No,
recognize.
I'm just asking you whether the
I'm telling
rezoning
you-
was
I'm telling you,
inappropriate.
The comprehensive plan, when it was done, recognized that rezoning. And showed it as, on the map, as a cutout that was distinct with a different land use pattern than what they showed over the hotel. Over the hotel, they showed a open space and green space, or whatever the correct language is, land use designation. They did not show a commercial designation, or they, and coupled with the new language of the R3 zoning district, which was adopted on April 14th, it says such uses should not be located on open space.
So-
Open space is not a zoning
And
district.
you're familiar-
Open space is a comprehensive plan district, so that's why. how
You're
I-
familiar that the text amendment provides that there should be no residential development on the golf course, right? Are you familiar that the text amendment says that?
It doesn't say that.
Okay. It says it doesn't allow residential on open space, correct?
Correct.
And you would say that the golf course is open space, right?
I would say that the comprehensive plan shows all of that site in the general area to the south, east of the S-curve of Midwest and Cass as being open space, with the exception of the cutout in the middle where the residences of Oak Brook Hills are located.
Are you saying that that cutout is spot zoning?
Not at all.
Okay, so you would agree with me that similar zoning and similar uses from a land planning perspective is preferred. So if there's an R4 zoning district to the east, it's not unusual to have residential immediately to the west of that, from a planning perspective, correct?
I think that completely ignores the comprehensive planning function that the village of Westmont undertook and analyzed of what they would like to have go forward, so that they're not dealing with a decision on a case-by-case basis, but they have a comprehensive, long-term view of how they're going to deal with land use decisions.
I'm just asking you from a planning perspective, whether it's more appropriate or less appropriate to have similar land uses or similar zoning districts, so that the R4 to the east, it wouldn't be unusual to have zoning to the west that provides for residential use. From a land use perspective, and you doing this in Downers Grove for so many years, that's not unusual. As a matter of fact, that's probably a preferred way of looking at land planning,
The
correct?
municipality had the option of making that decision, but they chose not to.
I guess you're not answering the question. I have another question for you.
I would like
Didn't
to answer your
the way
question.
You asked it. You wanted me to answer it, but I asked it.
I believe it's Mr. Faywell.
Yeah, we have Mr. Fable here.
Okay, I'll answer your question to the best.
Oh, I'm Mr. Shapiro. This is Mr.
Oh,
Fable.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shapiro.
Yes.
I apologize.
That's quite all right.
my
I've been
notes
called
wrong.
worse.
To the best of my knowledge, there is no rezoning being asked.
That's correct. You're absolutely right. My
So
point
therefore,
is,
why are you presuming this back and forth, getting nowhere?
well,
Also, you alluded to the golf course and semi-alluded that possibly something could be built there.
please
By this
understand
owner,
that it
because-
was absolutely not my intent. We intend to
That's
comply.
almost what I got from it, because
Absolutely not. We
the
have,
gentleman does not own the golf course.
there will,
They have a use of the golf course for, I believe, 30 years, but
Mr.
they
Chair,
do not own it.
absolutely, there's no desire whatsoever. We have a license agreement, by the way, for 30 years. There's no desire, never been a desire to put anything on the golf course, and I think that was a concern of this body when the text amendment was considered, and that's why
what
it was
I got
restricted.
from you when you were just talking.
That was not my intent, so I want to clear that up. Thank you. With respect to the zoning, I guess my point is, the same folks here who are objecting to the apartments are the same folks who are benefiting from R4 rezoning. Now, there could have been two ways of skinning the cat here. There could have been one way, which is provide for a text amendment, which the village did at its own initiative to provide for residential. The other way would have been to provide for or to request a rezoning. Now, I would submit that the rezoning would have been the same rezoning that was done before for the R4, and it would have been hard to deny since the R4 is right next door. So to the extent that their planner is complaining that the residential is immediately to the west, it's the clients that he's representing got the benefit of a residential rezoning years ago. That's my point.
All right.
Mr. Ratchey, you also agree, I'm sorry, almost done. In your years of experience at Downers Grove and elsewhere, you understand and process planned unit development applications by developers because that was a method to allow for greater flexibility from the strict adherence to the bulk regulations, correct?
Certainly.
And that's one of the applications that's being sought here, is to seek flexibility from the strict applications of the bulk regulations, correct?
Bulk regulations are a separate issue and a subset to the plan development, but plan development does foster considerations of certain exceptions.
That's all I need to know. Thank you. I now just want to comment a little bit on Mr. Day. I don't have any questions for him, but we have known each other long enough that probably could have anticipated what he would say, and he's going to anticipate what I'm going to say right now. So I do have some response to him. First of all, Mr. Day mentioned that the hotel is in trouble. The hotel is not in trouble. When it was purchased, it was in trouble. The hotel is getting better, and with the efforts of Mr. Dumont and the huge commitments that he's making, the hotel is going to be even better. But I think that the portrayal of that is certainly inaccurate and not consistent with the facts. He also mentioned the text amendment. I want to reiterate that the text amendment restricts any development on the golf course. There's no intent, no desire. I'll be very clear for that right now to clarify any unintentional comment otherwise. I don't know why Mr. Day referenced the 90-day statute of limitations other than to subtly suggest that his clients, the two clients that he represents, would file a lawsuit. I'm not sure that that's much appreciated by this commission nor the village board. With respect to the publication, I would submit that the publication is 100% appropriate, regardless of the arguments to the contrary. And it seems to me that what Mr. Day would like to do, having been now hired at the 11th hour, is to throw so much in front of you, like we should get an appraisal report, like he just got 300 pages of documents, and by the way, they're not all that critical to look at, Scott. So he really wants more time. And that's what he wants. He wants more time to develop more arguments that may rise or fall, but that's what he wants. And I would suggest that at this 11th hour, when he's been in this case for a couple of days or a week or so, to now ask this board for a continuance to give him more time to marshal and try to marshal up more evidence is inappropriate. And it certainly, this matter has been before any number of public bodies in a hearing session or meeting session for months. And to come here and say, oh, I just got these records because I was just retained, and by the way, we need a we need a continuation of the public hearing, is certainly, I don't know what adjective, but you get it. I think it's late in the day for that. And he certainly can talk about all the economics that he wants, but I didn't really see a lot of arguments that he made to land use. Now, let's not forget, and I can't emphasize it enough, that a PD, which is often used by developers, asks for the very flexibility that Mr. Dumont is asking for here. Flexibility from the zoning regulations. That's the essence of a PD. And oftentimes, zoning ordinances will say, but you got to provide an amenity, you got to provide enhanced landscaping, you got to provide something unique. Well, this is quite unique to this village. The amenities, I don't need to speak to. You've heard clearly what this PD offers. The unified ownership and control, again, a standard requirement, is there. And it's because of this type of project that a PD is appropriate. Now, when we talk about variances or waivers, the PD, I call them departures. I think staff calls them waivers, allows for that. But it's interesting, in addressing the standards that we were asked to address for the departures, the standards, the questions are more like variations. So when Mr. Day says there's been no response to variation requests, there indeed have been, because the same questions you ask for a PD waiver are the same questions that are typically asked for variations. So we've addressed all the standards for the waivers, for the special use, for the PD. They're self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through them again because I think they're in your packet. It's a late night, and I've done enough speaking. So I will just reserve my right to rebut other witnesses until a later time, but I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We will go back to public comment. Will anybody from the public speak on this issue? Please, sir, come up.
Good evening. My name is Vince Priest. I'm a small business owner here in Westmont, 204 East Chicago Avenue. I stood before this committee in 2010, had even more people show up in opposition to my project than have shown up here tonight. We were able to prevail by listening to the neighbors, compromising with the neighbors, shuttle diplomacy in the form of Jim Addington and several members of this board. The way that it was resolved was there was a continuance. I recommend that you follow course. We were held to a fairly high standard with the variances, although we did get a number of variances. I think that the project is excellent. I am a proponent of the project. I am also a proponent of these neighbors. I agree that their concerns about parking are legitimate. However, I think that this natatorium will be a huge benefit to Westmont. I think that the apartments will be used. I don't agree with the attorney's assessment that they're overpriced. I think our employees will live there and they will frequent all of the amenities that Mr. Murrow has referenced. So that's my 2 cents. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. You'll be next.
My name is Bob Signorella, and I'm a resident at 28 Willowcrest Road in the residence of Oak Brook Hills. I wasn't going to speak because it's a late night, but there was some reference that the residences have just hired high-powered attorneys to represent them, and nothing could be further from the truth. So I'm here to give some testimony about some of what the consensus is and a little bit about my own personal insight. Number one is I've lived in Westmont 25 years, raised my kids. I lived in Oakwood on Revere Court, 817 Revere Court. 25 years in Westmont from age 3 and 5. Went through Little League with them, coached them. They went to Manning School. They went to the middle schools. I'm very familiar with Westmont. I know a lot of the residences. I've been living at Willowcrest for 10 years, so that makes me 35 years a Westmont resident. So I can tell you that even though I'm sure there's a bunch of residents here that would love to speak here, I just felt that I needed to at least assert what our positions are on this. I'm not going to hear, and I'm not going to debate the legality of the ordinances and the waivers. You've heard enough legal jargon to probably to put you asleep. I'm not here to do that. I am also a principal in an accounting firm in Oak Brook Terrace, which is only like 3 miles from where I live. I travel Midwest Road every day, and every day I drive back, I keep on picturing a 7-story structure that completely obscures the front of a hotel, and I ask myself, how could that enhance the hotel? So really, the big elephant in the room really is the success of the hotel. I applaud these land developers for investing. I work with business owners for 35 years in practice. When I counsel my business owners, it's risk and reward. It's return on investment. So I'm very familiar with what all those concepts mean. I think I always ask and counsel my clients, what's plan B? When they come to me and they got the greatest idea about diversifying and investing, I always ask them, what's plan B? We saw an incredible presentation for an hour and a half here, and I must admit, when I first saw it, when we were invited, I was really impressed with it. When you start peeling the onion back and look and do some common sense things about what if, what about this, what is this? So I would like to present some key questions, because I really feel like I tell the clients, it's asking the right question that will lead to better answers. I'm not here to say that this is bad or good. However, when I look at the testimonies that were brought forward, there's pretty much a strong consensus about the natatorium being really a good thing. My question to you is ultimately to be responsible is, what are the cash flows of the natatorium? What does it look like for 1 or 2 years? Why hasn't one been developed in Illinois all this time? My kids went to Westmont High School for swimming lessons when Westmont could have a swimming pool. I don't think it's even there anymore. So I'm a big advocate of swimming, and I don't see that as being the big issue here. When I look at this proposal, I keep on asking myself, what is the linkage between an apartment building and a state-of-the-art swimming facility? I see them as mutually exclusive. We've heard all kinds of testimony about the density, the parking shortages. We've heard all of these things, and the staggering of the parking. And yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But in my heart, I look at this and I say, how does this fit Westmont's master plan? I mean, I know, and I've lived in Westmont long enough, that I remembered when the barns burned down and there was no golf course. I remember all that. And I remember the master plan has changed a little bit. But I know darn sure that apartments on the north side of Westmont is something that is not really part of the master plan. So I also understand our investor over here who's trying to make a fair return. He's risking a lot of capital. He paid $30 million. That's a lot of money. And he's trying to get a return on his money. But when I look at what's being proposed, I think it was well said when he said someone's trying to put 20 pounds of sand in a 5-pound bag. I mean, I look at the parcels here there's 5 parcels, a hotel, the shared parking, the natatorium, the acreage, the west parking lot. Part of me wants to think, you know what, maybe we could put a stable on the west parking lot. You know, it says, how much can you fit into this density? And what does it do for the long-term ecology, congestion, and safety of that, okay? I've lived in Willowcrest for 10 years, and there was an incident where there was a gas leak. We could barely get out of that subdivision. So Plan B would be, what if, okay? So I just propose those questions to you. You know, what are some of these things? What are some of the economics? There is a lot of vagueness, and the young man that preceded me talked about there are still other questions. There's still more peeling back of the onion, I think, that's needed. So that's I wanted to say to you, and thanks for your patience. It's been a long night.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, guys. My name is Chris Pullman. I am a resident here of Westmont. I moved here in 2007. I do own multiple properties in Westmont. I think I represent a little bit of a different demographic than a lot of the people here tonight, in that I have 4 kids. My oldest is 6. My roots are here in Westmont. I chose to move to Westmont because of the opportunity that I saw moving to this community. I thought that there was a lot of potential here, and I thought that this would be a great place to raise my family, and I still feel that way. I think that the opportunity that the investors, the developer, and Mrs. Kaufman is bringing to the community is one that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the community. And I know there's a lot of passionate people here looking at this development and worried about what it means for them and looking at the change that this could mean to them. But I would like to say that, you know, you're not the only stakeholders in the room. We have an entire community of 25,000 residents in Westmont that will benefit from the increased property values and the world-class recognition that we would get from an opportunity like this. Not only is it something that's going to help us with our local economy here, but in the region. So I also sit on the board of directors of Choose DuPage. It's an economic development organization for the county. And I understand the importance of regional economic development. And I can't quite honestly think of a better project that the community should get around than the project that's been proposed here tonight. So I would ask the committee to give this some serious consideration as you make your recommendation to the village board whether to move forward or not, because it's, in my opinion, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I don't think that we should be passing up here. If I have one frustration with living in Westmont as a resident for the last 7 years, I'll say it's the lack of progress that I think the village has made. I see the same vacant buildings up and down Cass Avenue for the last 7 years here on Quincy, all the empty real estate lots that are in town that from all the busted real estate developments that happen in this town. And you know, every time you drive through town and you see a police car with the Progressive Village written all over the car, and I have not seen as a resident any progress in this village. I'll say any meaningful progress in this village over the last 7 years that I've lived here. So I'm asking you to give this project some serious consideration as you move this up to the board, because I'm planning on living here for a long time. I think this would be a great addition to our local community. And the one other thing I'd like to add is a resident that owns multiple pieces of real estate in the village. One of them is a higher-end multifamily unit, and I don't have any problem finding renters for that unit. I've had 2 renters over the last 5 years. They have signed long-term leases close to $3,000 a month for a multi-dwelling unit. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to go into a little more detail of that with all of you. But I do believe that, you know, some of the opposition that we've heard tonight to the project, primarily being able to support a rental unit that's being proposed, I have the personal opinion that that would be able to be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, if you would.
Thank you very much. My name is Kathy Gingrassi. I live in Oak Brook in the Saddlebrook subdivision. And I just wanted to say I appreciate your time. I won't take a lot of time. This is not an issue that is just a Westmont issue. It is something that includes all the collar areas around here, particularly in traffic. And we hear all night, parking, parking, parking. And when I hear parking, I know that there's a car that's looking for a parking space, but we're not addressing all the traffic that's going to increase on Cass. Cass is just a one-shot deal north and south. The entrance to this property is on Cass, and this gentleman here tells us that there's not going to be any increase in traffic on Cass. So it is a problem, and it affects people outside of Westmont. Thank you.
That's his last name. Priest. Okay. But he's okay. It's the other guy. Please, oh yes, please, come up.
My name is Katie Canino, and I did sign in. My husband and I are residents of Willow Crest. We agree that the hotel is extremely important. We love that, you know, I believe Mr. Dumont said, to quote him, back when it was in its heyday. We would love to see it back in its heyday. My husband and I stayed at that hotel in the late 80s, and it was absolutely beautiful. In its heyday, it didn't have an apartment building you could see out the window, you could see the golf course. So I can't, for the life of me, wrap my head around how a 350-unit apartment building helps the hotel. I can't see the correlation there. I've thought, back and forth, but the couple of things about the text amendment. I'm not a zoning. I have no idea what the zoning laws are. Text amendment was brought up a couple of times. Mr. Dumont brought it up, and I believe then his attorney said we weren't threatening the golf course. So I guess that .13 FAR doesn't mean anything that they brought up a couple of times as well. Again, I don't really understand the FAR, but that .13 can't even come into play here. The only other thing I did want to say was there were a couple of things that I was personally insulted by Mr. Numan. One of them was I do think that when they have this list up here, I feel threatened because if we oppose what he's proposing, we're supposed to keep looking at this list of what they could do, what they are allowed to do. And I feel very, personally threatened by that, and I really didn't care for that. The other thing is his real estate expert that came up and talked about the sense of community. My husband and I lived in LaGrange Park for 37 years, raised our children there, loved it, we've lived here just about 2 years now. And I can tell you the sense of community in 2 years is every bit as strong as we felt for 37 years in LaGrange Park. So we love Westmont. We live in, like I said, in Willow Crest. We have recently moved our business to the industrial area over at Time Warner. So we're here, we're invested 110%, both business and personally, and really do not understand any benefits of a 350-unit apartment building. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Please, if you would, ma'am.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak. I know it's been a long evening for everybody. My name is Kathy Fisher. I live at 27 Willow Crest, and I have been at the previous Planning and Zoning Committee and the Village Board meeting. And at both of those, they referenced that the hotel is the crown jewel of Westmont. And I think that the natatorium could also be a crown jewel of Westmont. I can see that it would have a positive impact on the hotel and add to the success of the hotel. But I don't see what success the apartment complex can bring to the hotel. How will that enhance the hotel? So that's just my one question, my one concern.
Thank you very much. Will there be any further? I see a hand raised.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Karen Bushy, and I am the former president of the Village of Oak Brook and president of DuPage Mayors and Managers formerly as well. But I got my start on the Plan Commission, so I know full well what you're going through. And partly what I wanted to do is come up and salute you for what you're doing. I've been there and did it for 8 years, so thank you for that. Most of what I was going to mention has already been said by others, so I'll spare you that and just say I concur with much of what was said. I think the great concern for those, and I live in Saddlebrook, so one of the great concerns many of us have is anecdotally the parking. Many times, when you go, and I don't know how many of you live close by, but the parking comes out the driveway and is parked on Cass, and people park where they can, and I saw in some of the written word that they're going to be charging for some of the parking. Well, I got to tell you, the parking then in the driveways and out on Cass is going to be even worse, because people don't want to pay to park. If they can find a place to stick their car, they will. We already deal with it, and maybe the traffic engineers weren't there that night, but those of us that live in the area see it often. I also have another thought that hasn't been brought up much tonight, and I offer it for your thoughtfulness, consideration. I commend you for this, this idea of world-class Westmont. It's catchy, it's good, it has a lot to say about your community, and your community has a lot to give. Why do you continue to call your project Oak Brook? It's not in Oak Brook. It's
You're
in
right.
Westmont. Give yourself the credit for what you have. It's wonderful, and if you're going to have this natatorium, call it what it is. Don't hang it on us, okay? But no, I'm trying to make light of it because it's late. But really and truly, if this is all going to be kind of a big redone thing and a renaissance of this property, it's a perfect time to take credit for it. Be proud of Westmont. Be proud of who you are and what you have. You've done a wonderful job, and you can do more. But you don't need to trade off on our name for something that supposedly benefits your community. And the dichotomy of it is what makes Oak Brook and Oak Brook's name worthy of ponying along with is our low-density, low-rise buildings with great setbacks, which is the exact opposite of what's being proposed here. So if you're calling it Oak Brook, it's not. It's too tall, and it's too wide, and it's too dense. So that part comes out actually kind of silly. It really does. It just, to the people in the area, it just sounds a little silly. I would say, as far as the, I would leave it to others to talk about stormwater. I was vice president of the DuPage County Stormwater Committee, and I didn't see a whole lot of material there about that. But I would also wonder, with a garage with apartments wrapped all the way around it, in our village and in many others, even outdoor parking ramps are now sprinklered because of the tremendous, the cars now with all the synthetic materials that they're made out of. Car fires are vicious, and I'm sure the Westmont Fire Department will talk to you about that. But the idea of having a whole core of cars with all those gas tanks with residences wrapped around that, you need to be thinking about. We're part of MABUS 12, I know you are too. What kind of preparations are your ambulances and fire going to have to be able to get in there and deal with a car on fire when having residents wrapped around that? You got some serious things to think about with that, in my personal view. And your ambulances and your fire trucks are going to need 360-degree access around the pool, the natatorium, around those apartments. And if you've got buses and people, my kids are swimmers too, I know all about that. Sat more damn swim meets. But, oh, did I say that out loud? So yeah, but it's buses and cars, and it's a frickin' mess. And I'm telling you, you don't have room in the schematic I saw for the kind of coming and going that happens with swim meets, whether it's high school kids or college kids or what. It doesn't happen. But anyway, I did want to thank you for the time you're putting into it. I think somebody else mentioned it. You're putting 10 pounds of potatoes in the proverbial 5-pound sack. We fought it tooth and nail in Oak Brook because we had a lot of people wanted to do it with us too, let me tell you. We're used to it. But I did want to commend you for the time and the effort that you're putting into it, because I know it's a lot of work. I know the staff works their tail off doing this stuff, and I just wanted to say thank you for all you're putting into it, and hope that you'll take a good hard look at some of this. I think it's a little too much for what they're trying to do, and call it Westmont. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. If you would, sir.
My name is Alan Corin, and I'm also part of this Oak Brook contingent here. But we love Westmont. I frequently go to church in Westmont, and I was the president of Oak Brook Little League, and the best people to work with at the district meetings were from Westmont, a great bunch of guys. We're really happy to have this opportunity to speak to you, and really happy that you're giving your time. I know you don't get paid to do this, and this seems like a really, really good zoning board. And I'm very impressed from the comments I've heard so far, and you should all be, thanked for what you're doing. About 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, I went to look at an open house in the residents of Oak Brook Hills. I went with my wife, and we really liked what we saw there. We heard the presentation for in the marketing presentation, and it was really seductive, and it was the type of thing that we thought maybe this might be a good place for us to move to. But nowhere during the presentation was it mentioned that once you purchase at the residence of Oak Brook, you might find out sometime in the future that a zoning board or a village board might make a decision which will provide a 7-story structure consisting of rental apartments, kind of in your backyard. Well, maybe you could look out the window or your back window and see them. They fail to mention that in the marketing presentation. But how easy it is to not thinking about that. You make an investment decision, and when you buy a home, that is an investment decision. So I know the gentlemen here that have made their presentation are investors. But when you buy a home, you're also making an investment, and a major investment at that. And it's so important for this board to have a strong burden of proof before you make any kind of changes. I know the village board has already decided to rezone from commercial to special use, but you have a decision on what to do with the special use. And I would just ask you to have the strongest burden of, insist on the strongest burden of proof before you do this, because there's a lot of consequences when you make this decision concerning property values, which affect Westmont, but it also affects surrounding communities. Everybody wants their property values protected. It's something that you really want to do a great job on, and I know you will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Lori Pearsall. I live at 46 Willowcrest Drive. In reference to what some people have said about how come the residents aren't speaking up, we spoke up plenty in the last 2 meetings. We could stay and keep you here till 2 a.m. if you want to, but everybody agrees with everything that's been said by our representation. What I would like to add tonight is that I'm terrified with one way in and one way out, and no opportunity to change that in my neighborhood, that if a gas explosion, a fire, a car crash, anything that's amplified 700 more times with all those people that are going to be living there, we have no way out. And that's a serious concern. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody? I guess there is.
One more. You gotta love democracy in action at, what are we, 11:21. So I'll try to keep it brief. I actually am with Cambridge Partners, so I don't know if this is the appropriate time for me to speak. At the risk of being cross-examined by Mr. Dumont's attorney, I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I have been doing market studies and real estate appraisals for about 8 years, so not as long as some other folks here, but I also spent 4 years as a real estate broker in Barrington, and now we appraise multifamily, we appraise special use, special uses such as golf courses. We're actually working on one up in Barrington now and one down in Wayne, and so we know a little bit about that. I'm also a board member of the Northwest Housing Partnership, which is a not-for-profit, and I'm the chair of the development committee. So we've seen our fair share of pro formas, and so I can speak a little bit to this. I mean, it's quite an investment. I can't really speak to the natatorium because we didn't see anything about that. I can't really speak to the golf course, but what I think I can say with some confidence is that the apartments have to succeed. I mean, the apartments would be the engine of this campus, this installation. And what I don't think anyone has brought up, and what we kind of did in our research and in looking at CBRE's report, was just kind of do our own research, and we're always doing that. We're always seeing the reports coming across, and it makes me think back to like 2003, 2004. And as a new homeowner with me and my wife in our first condo in downtown Palatine, and I'm looking across the train station at these, $500,000 townhomes that were being built, and I was like, how can that be sustainable? And I was selling homes at the time. I was like, that's unsustainable. How can that be? And now And it's not, just a coincidence. Now I just kind of feel the same way about the multifamily rental market. And no one's really spoke to that, so I just wanted to share a couple of really broad-based things. I mean, I feel like we've been down in like Google Street View all night long, and so I just kind of want to bring it back, like bird's eye view. What does multifamily look like? And if you read the headlines, it's looking like, well, multifamily's had a good run, but where's it going to go from here? One of the reports we saw was, Reese Reports, which is a pretty broad-based, broad brush real estate market report firm, and they put out reports all the time. And one of their senior economists just recently said, we can't keep building and building and building and not see weakness in the market. It's, and it's something that I would just encourage anyone that's going to make a significant investment like this, whether it's the Village or Mr. Dumont, to really just kind of look at it, and it's like, okay, we've got 325 units and we want to charge this. Can you do it? You really think you can do that? And this was just another, this is, again, real broad brush. Wall Street Journal, Friday, April 8th, 2016. So this is pretty recent. The article opens by saying, the apartment rental market cooled in the first quarter, according to reports from 3 research companies. A 6-year boom that has pushed the cost of housing to unaffordable heights in the U.S. in many U.S. cities might be coming to an end. Potentially most alarming to housing economists, demand for new apartments in the first quarter was about half its typical level. The number of occupied new apartments across the country climbed by just over 20,000 units in the first quarter, compared with the 5-year average of about 40,000 for the quarter. The data suggests the bull market for apartments, which began in 2010, is on its last legs. So again, it's nothing, specific to the project as proposed. We haven't reviewed a pro forma or anything like that, but a significant investment like this, Mr. Dumont can go ahead and make, and I would just encourage any other interested parties to really take a close look at it. And you may say, well, you're from Palatine, but I'm interested in real estate. I'm interested in seeing good projects succeed. I don't want to see an empty building. I mean, we're not too far from One Arlington, which was included in the CBRE report, and we've actually done work with those guys. And so they took, I don't know if you guys remember the big hotel fire years and years and years ago, and Duchess was standing out on his balcony watching, not the hotel fire, he's watching Arlington Park burn. Mm-hmm. That hotel, they have completely, ripped up and turned into apartments, and we counseled them a little bit on that project, and it's just like, okay, let's make sure this works. And at this point, I'm not going to speak to the occupancy at this point. In the CBRE report, it was at like 34%. So, I want to see that full. I don't want to see that empty. I live not too far from there. So, for the same thing goes for the folks that live, next to Westmont. I mean, I think everyone just kind of needs to really take a long, hard look at, investing in these kinds of projects. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Will there anybody else from the public who will speak on this issue? Is there anybody in the viewing room off that will speak? I have no. Okay. Let's close the public comment.
Before you close the public comment for tonight, I don't know if it's appropriate to close the public hearing, only because was there a request for a continuance? Can I ask a question of you, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Can you tell me the proximity of your clients to the property in question in terms of number of feet away that they reside?
Anybody in the group? Can you speak to the distance your homes are from the proposed improvements?
Excellent. The reason I ask is Illinois state statute allows for objecting property owners within 250 feet to request one continuance if they object for the purpose of presenting rebuttal testimony. If that is the purpose, to present rebuttal testimony from what was heard tonight and not repetitive testimony, and if your clients in fact reside within 250 feet, sounds like they do, then statutorily he's entitled to, or the residents are entitled to one continuance. And
Is that your wish?
It is.
You might be blocked.
And I certainly would be willing to listen to Mr. Shapiro and what he has to say on that subject.
Thank you. The statute does allow for that. However, it's not an entitlement. It's in the discretion of this plan commission. The statute allows for a request to be made, but does not give an automatic continuance. It allows for a request to be made under, again, within the discretion for rebuttal testimony. We've heard a lot of rebuttal testimony. I can't imagine what else there could be, aside from anything from the 300 pages that were just recently requested. So I don't think it's an automatic, and we would ask that this commission look at this request and the involvement late in the day, which is really the genesis of this request, and deny it.
All right, very good. It is my intention then that I will poll the commission. Start with Commissioner Carmichael.
As to the continuance, or?
As to the continuance.
Yeah,
Is there anything?
I think it's a very reasonable request. It's,
he's actually right.
Given everything that we've heard tonight and the fuzziness of a lot of it, the intensity of it. Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren.
Yes.
Commissioner Pill.
Yes. Are we allowed to make comments also at this time, or do you just want a yes or a no?
Let's get everybody for a yes or no, and then we'll have our talk.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp.
Yes.
Commissioner Bartel. Okay, Greg, what do you have to say?
Well, I just wanted to say that I know that over the last 2 months, there have been a lot of suggestions made as to working out some thoughts and compromises and things like that. I've not seen a great deal of evidence of that, and perhaps the gentlemen who have made their presentations tonight are hard and fast in what they want to do. But I would suggest that if there is a continuance, and if that's what we approve, then perhaps sometime during the next 30 days or whatever the time is until that, as Mr. Priest had mentioned earlier when he was up at the podium, I was very familiar with his project, which had 3 continuances and ended up in a satisfied community, as well as a first-class project for a world-class Westmont. That was the standard market project. So it would be nice to see if there could be some type of coming together of both sides of the room, and perhaps looking at whatever it might be, the natatorium going to Lot 5, a floor or 2 being removed, underground parking being added, whatever that might happen that might make this a little bit more palatable, because there's certainly a lot of great ideas out here, and it would be nice to see this thing have everybody's blessing. That's it.
I agree. I have a concern, an extreme concern with parking. I've seen no indication whatsoever that you might even consider an underground parking for one level in your tenant building. I think it would behoove you to go back and think this project through again and listen to the concerns of the people that are adjacent to your property. I would entertain a motion to postpone this meeting until...
Can I make one statement, please?
Please do, yes.
In terms of the, are we, steadfast in the project and, and take it or leave it, that's not the way we work. We love collaboration. In terms of working with the neighbors, we would be thrilled to do so. It's a two-way street, though. If it's just hell no, no matter what you do in terms of concessions for us, we're opposing you no matter what, I'm not negotiating against myself. We hosted the community at the hotel prior to, and frankly, at Jill's request, prior to it becoming more generally available to the public. Gave them an overview of what we were talking about, why we were talking about doing it, and they had some very valid concerns that I brought up earlier. One is noise from the tent. Tent's going to be gone. As a proactive measure by us as a developer, that became a condition. We're fine with it. I talked with Mr. Greg Butler. His unit, great view, looks out at the tennis courts that I spoke of earlier. So, you know, valid concern. I wouldn't want that if I lived there. So we said, okay, in addition to making the tent a permanent walled structure, I'll take all the carts off, tuck them underneath that, and then rip that apart and make it a 9-hole putting course. And all green space and flowers and, you know, landscaping, and then the walking trail, which was, you know, criticized earlier as 3/4 of a mile, and you run around that 4 times, you've done almost a 5K, which is about all I can do anymore. So we've offered that. I would like nothing more, and I spoke to the staff about this earlier this week, than to pull the trigger on my golf course architect for a, you know, $3.5 to $4 million renovation of the golf course that I want to close the course October 1 of this year. It's going to be closed all of next year and then reopen the following spring after growing. It requires drawings. There's a critical path that we're going down. And, you know, delays like this, can we survive one continuation? Yeah, we can. But if it's on and on and on and threats of litigation, I have no interest in negotiating this myself. I would also like to improve the rear of the hotel. And people have said, well, geez, you know, how does the apartment building have any economic impact or any correlation with the natatorium or the hotel? Well, first of all, with respect to the natatorium, elite athletes that are swimmers, they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the love of the sport because there is no money. And when they get out of the NCAA age, or even during that age, they got to work for a living. So the tie-in with the natatorium in attracting elite swimmers there to train is they get up at 5 in the morning, they go swim for an hour, they go back to their apartment unit, take a shower, jump on our shuttle bus to the Westmont train station, go downtown Chicago, work all day, do the same thing. We pick them up in the afternoon, they go back, and then they train again at night. They do that for a very long period of time. And, you know, over the next 10, 20 years, if this gets built, you're going to have Olympic champions from Westmont. Okay, that's the correlation. The other correlation is economic. The golf course makes no sense. Okay, if I was doing this just for economic reasons, I'd let it go to seed. I mean, it's there as a nice amenity, but, you know, right now it really doesn't make any money, and I don't see that changing because the golf industry is frankly not doing well. There's more courses coming in, and fewer players starting to play. Bad math. I want to save the course. It's a great amenity for the hotel, great amenity for the community. And I'm here crazy enough to say I'm going to put $3.5 to $4 million in a losing bet. The only reason I can do that is if I get the apartments approved, because those are profitable. Same thing with the back of the hotel. Same thing with the entry drive, which I can't believe anybody brought up, because I went over there this afternoon. You know, we did some, you know, patching on it when we bought the hotel because it needed it. It needs it again. There's potholes. That thing needs to get reconstructed. You know what? You're on the hook for part of that, too. I hope you all realize that. We haven't charged you for snow plowing in years. It's not threats, it's reality. I've been giving you free snow plowing for 2 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I paid your course, I paid my money.
Okay,
Appreciate it. All right. Okay, and the other impact is, but the road is going to have to be rebuilt. We need to talk about things like this as neighbors, not through lawyers. Okay, and that needs to be planned for. So there's an enormous amount of infrastructure work that has to be done there, the irrigation on the golf course being a huge part of it. And, you know, we have done a lot of things proactively that I want to make this commission aware of. And we've gotten no support and response. In fact, it's been worse than that. We've gotten a shutdown of communication except through attorneys. I'm happy to host them again, as long as there's some positive feedback saying, hey, this is what we think. You know, we've already taken the parking down, you know, partially one floor. You know, I frankly, you know, there's been some comments, you know, about can we take a floor off? I'd rather cut off the edges a little bit, make it a little bit more narrow, put another floor on top and another floor parking up. I mean, there's no difference between a 7-story building and an 8-story building. It's still well short of the 125 feet we're allowed. It's still well short of the hotel building itself. It's well short of the low-density, low-rise Marriott in Oak Brook at 22nd Street. I'd rather go a little bit taller, build my parking up another level and solve that problem, and take the wings off the building. And then I can have more surface spaces and more grass amenity there. There's all kinds of great things that can be done if we collaborate. But if it's hell no, no matter what you do, it's kind of a one-way conversation. And so far, I've cost myself, between the tent and the underground storage, the underground cart storage, and then the putting green, I'm probably into it for $5 million. And what was a proactive, good neighbor approach has become a condition. And I haven't gotten any credit for it. So if it's a two-way street, I'd love to talk. I'd like nothing more. And I'd like to talk directly. But if it's just hell no, I don't see a purpose.
Peter, I appreciate your words.
Thank you.
Perhaps there may be some communication with 3 parties where the village could be part of it also, and maybe a mitigation can be done for some of these extreme variances that are being requested. Now, I see a lady back there. We have closed the public comment, but please, if you would.
I just think that the record should show that we really did appreciate you doing the presentation at the hotel for us. But at that presentation, it was presented to us that it would be a 5-story building, and that has changed since that presentation. So I just wanted the record to say.
Thank you. Okay, I have the commission okay, so I would entertain a motion to postpone the meeting until, I believe, June 15th is the Wednesday after our regularly scheduled June meeting. Am I correct?
And that would be a continuation of the public hearing.
That would be a continuation of the public hearing, which would not require a republication or re-notification or anything.
Although the village does reserve the right to republish if it feels like that would either be helpful to the residents or to correct any perceived publication errors.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Carmichael. A question on the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartel?
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Richard?
Yes. We will see everybody June 15th.